History remembers Cleopatra as the last queen of Egypt, the seductress of Rome, the woman who brought empires to their knees. But behind the legends lies a far more complex, far more political, and far more strategic story, one that most people never hear. This is not just a tale of romance. It is a tale of power, identity, survival, and a queen who dared to challenge the world's greatest empire and almost won. Welcome to Cleopatra and Rome, the Untold Story. Most people imagine Cleopatra as an Egyptian by blood, draped in gold, painted like the hieroglyphs. But the truth? Cleopatra VII was Greek, from the Macedonian dynasty of Ptolemy. Her ancestors were generals under Alexander the Great. Yet Cleopatra was the first of her dynasty to do something extraordinary. She embraced Egypt. She learned the language. She studied Egyptian religion. She reinvented herself as a pharaoh, not a foreign ruler. And at just 18 years old, she sat on the throne of Egypt beside her brother, who also happened to be her husband. But Egypt was weak. The economy was shaking. Famine threatened. And beyond Egypt's borders, a giant was rising: Rome.
Rome wasn't yet an empire, but it was a beast with no rival. Egypt, wealthy and fertile, became a tempting target. The Roman Senate debated Egypt constantly. Some wanted to annex it, others wanted its grain and its gold. Most, however, feared its political instability. Cleopatra's brothers' advisors saw this fear, and so they moved to remove her from power. Cleopatra was exiled, forced to flee to the desert with only a handful of loyal supporters. But exile didn't break her, it sharpened her. This was when Cleopatra began forming the strategy that would define her life. To survive Egypt, she would have to survive Rome. In 48 BCE, Rome itself was at war. Julius Caesar, fresh from defeating Pompey, arrived in Alexandria seeking his rival, only to find that Pompey had already been killed by Cleopatra's brothers' advisors in a desperate attempt to please Caesar. Caesar was furious. He despised betrayal, he despised chaos, and he demanded order in Egypt. Cleopatra saw her chance. She needed Caesar as an ally, but how could she reach him while her enemies guarded every door? This is where the legend begins. Cleopatra was smuggled into Caesar's private chambers, possibly rolled inside a carpet or a linen sack. When she emerged, she wasn't a seductress. She was bold, educated, charismatic, and politically sharp. She made her case. Egypt needed a single ruler. She was that ruler. And Caesar agreed. Not because of romance, but because helping Cleopatra gave him control over Egypt.
Caesar restored Cleopatra to the throne. Her brother rebelled. Alexandria became a battleground, but Cleopatra and Caesar won. A year later, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, Caesarion, Little Caesar. Whether Caesar was truly the father has been debated for centuries. But what matters is this: Cleopatra believed that through Caesar, she could protect Egypt from Rome, and maybe even regain the territories Egypt had lost over generations. For a moment, it worked. Cleopatra visited Rome, staying in Caesar's private villa. She shocked the city, appearing as a queen, not a foreign guest. Statues of her were placed in public temples. Romans whispered, but Caesar was unstoppable. Until he wasn't. On the Ides of March 44 BCE, Caesar was assassinated. Cleopatra left Rome quietly. And everything changed. Rome exploded into chaos. Two men rose as rivals for Caesar's legacy: Mark Antony, the fierce general,
and Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, quiet but calculating. Cleopatra knew this. Whoever controlled Rome controlled Egypt. When famine hit Egypt, Cleopatra refused to send Rome grain until someone recognized her son Caesarion as Caesar's heir. Octavian ignored her, but Mark Antony? He remembered her. He summoned Cleopatra for political support. But Cleopatra didn't come as a servant. She arrived on a grand barge, shimmering with gold, dressed as the goddess Isis. It wasn't seduction, it was diplomacy. Antony needed Egypt's wealth, Cleopatra needed Rome's military. Each saw in the other a strategic partner. But something unexpected happened. They fell in love.
Their alliance grew. Their children were born, and Cleopatra's vision expanded. She wanted to restore Egypt's ancient borders, to rebuild the empire of the pharaohs. Antony supported her. He even awarded her territories Rome controlled. In Rome, Octavian spread rumors that Antony had abandoned Rome, that Cleopatra had bewitched him, that Egypt and Cleopatra were a threat. The truth? Octavian needed a villain. Cleopatra was perfect. Rome declared war, not on Antony, but on Egypt. The final battle came at Actium. Cleopatra and Antony's fleets were outmaneuvered. Supplies dwindled. Desertions grew. Cleopatra ordered a retreat. Antony followed. Their forces collapsed. They fled back to Alexandria. The end was inevitable. Octavian marched on Egypt. One by one, Antony's loyalists surrendered. And when he believed Cleopatra was dead, Antony fell on his sword. Cleopatra, heartbroken, refused humiliation. She would not walk in Octavian's victory parade. Her death remains a mystery, whether by poison, by asp, or by another method entirely. But with her passed the independence of Egypt. Rome absorbed the kingdom. Cleopatra's son, Caesarion, was killed, and Octavian became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. History was written by the victors. Octavian shaped the narrative. Cleopatra as the temptress, Cleopatra as the manipulator, Cleopatra as the foreign threat. But the truth is more powerful. She was the last pharaoh, a strategist, a linguist, a queen who ruled at 18, reshaped diplomacy, and fought to keep her nation alive against the mightiest empire in history. Cleopatra did not fall because she was weak. She fell because Rome was unstoppable. Yet her story echoes through centuries of power, identity, ambition, and the cost of love in a world ruled by war. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the untold story of Cleopatra and Rome, subscribe for more ancient history stories brought back to life. This is Echoes of History, where the past speaks.